Good morning, everyone. It is 11 a.m. on Wednesday, September 9th, and it's live lesson time. Right now, it's just me. I'm hoping Miss Flores will join us in a few minutes, but if not, we'll just keep going forward. So let me pull up the presentation so I can see what you're seeing, and we'll get going. All right, y'all. So we have our standard welcome message, with and the reminder of if you joined us with the start of this live lesson to please, write your thoughts in with the chat box so we could have a discussion from there. Since it's just me, I'm just gonna do what I always do and tell you what I think it means, and we'll go from there. All right. But if you do have any thoughts when you submit your follow up to this live lesson assignment, please feel free to submit your thoughts too on the image. I always love reading those. All right. So the image today is like a little sign, and it says, "You don't get what you wish for; you get what you work for." And I've always kind of thought that was a true little a saying. You can wish for a lot of things, but if you really put in the effort and the work, then you have a higher chance of actually getting what you're hoping for. So if you thought that we were going to do a CSSS recap again, you would be correct. I picked that sign to go in to go along with our workplace relationships and ethics section of the CSSS. Again, CSSS stands for Career Success Standards. And with workplace relationship and ethics, you're following and promoting workplace policies and procedures, including good attendance, being on time, dressing appropriately for the job, develop productive relationships with members of your team. You understand and support the concept of customer service, and you respond well to supervision. And with this online environment, we kind of tacked on your active participation with G Suite as well. And so but that all kind of ties in still with having the good attendance and being on time for lessons and office hours, et cetera, et cetera. And a quick reminder again, we do the career success ratings on a weekly basis for every class that you're enrolled in. So, like I, as your CPP instructor, do a rating, your counselors, I believe, do a rating, and so on from there. And so, with you get a 5 if you complete 90 to 100% of assigned work for that week, and that you will receive a cash incentive for doing so. You'll get a 4 if you complete 75% of the assigned work for the week, and that also lands you with a cash incentive. A 3 if you've completed 60% of the assigned work for the week, and that also will land you a cash incentive. A 2 if you've completed 40% of the work assigned for the week, and that can also get you a cash incentive. And you'll get a 1 if you're completing less than 40% of the assigned work for the week, and there is no cash incentive because you really are not actively engaged with online learning if you're doing that few of submissions. Alrighty, also that is our CSS recap again on workplace relationships and ethics. I'm Ms. Buehler. I'm a CPP1 instructor. I've been with Gary since November of 2019. I'm from Nebraska. Have some favorites. We're just going to start skipping over some of this in regards to time. And you all know my buddy, my pal Santana, my dog. He usually makes some form of an appearance, either trying to crawl on my lap or barking at passersby. So we'll see if we hear from him. And then Ms. Flores is our teaching assistant, our TA. She does a great job of reaching out to you all every week, encouraging participation, just checking in on you in general, etc. And her day job with Gary, she's a residential coordinator for the Stephen F. Austin Dormitory. She's been with Job Corps for a little over a year now. And she has some other fun favorites as well. And sometimes you'll hear one of her kitties purring or meowing by her when she's with our live lessons. All right, so today's topic is going to be, oops, I didn't change the name of that slide. It says building trust, but we're actually doing the 8 pillars of trust today. So I'll have to fix that before I upload it. Anyways, we're going to look at what is trust, why is trust important, what are the 8 pillars of trust. We're going to define those 8 pillars, and then just kind of a quick little graph on the importance of trust at work. Our lesson goal for today is our students will be able to. It's my hope that by the end of all this, you will learn what traits combined together make up trust so that you can excel when you join the workforce as a full-time employee. All right, so what is trust? Well, it's a pretty long, broad definition, but it boiled it down to the first few points of trust, and that it's an assured reliance on the character, ability, strength, or truth of someone or something, and it's one in which confidence is placed. And I liked this image as well with the definition of trust, and that's that trust is a person's willingness to accept and or increase their vulnerability by relying on implicit or explicit information. So trust basically equals acceptable uncertainty, which is really true. Like you're trusting that everything will go okay. And so implicit is where you're kind of like expecting or hoping that something might happen, whereas explicit, it's like verbal, it's more overt, it's stated. And so that all kind of ties in, I feel like, with the definition of trust. So why is trust important? Well, so I found a site that shows like these four main points, and I think they really kind of apply not just within your personal lives, but really with your professional lives as well. And so trust is important because one, we are capable of more when we trust. Like we're not as fearful of challenges because we know someone has our backs. We're far more likely to share ideas because we're not afraid of um, maybe a recrimination or somebody scolding you for having a bad idea. We're capable of so much more when we trust. We're less lonely. It's not just you against the world; it's us against the world. So again, you have that kind of team environment when you work in an office a lot of times, or really any work site. Most work sites, so you have some form of a team environment. So you it's all of you together. 3, we're more authentic. So you don't feel like you have to present yourself to someone else. You can be your true self when you truly trust your environment and others. And trusting gives us a more positive view of the world. So trusting others allows us to see the good, basically, because you're not necessarily expecting the other shoe to drop. You're not expecting everything to go wrong all the time. It's because you're trusting that this everything will work out. You tend to have a rosier or more positive view of how everything will go. So that's why trust is important. So what are the 8 pillars of trust? Well, the 8 pillars of trust, and this is basically kind of a gentleman who is like getting, I believe, his master's in business administration or his MBA, really kind of narrowed in on this and saw it from a business standpoint. And so the 8 pillars of trust, especially with business, are clarity, compassion, character, contribution, competency, connection, commitment, and consistency. And we'll go through what all of this means, but really what it kind of boils down to is, yes, this is like from a business standpoint, and sometimes they'll talk about from a leadership standpoint in business, but I think this all applies to employees as well. So the 8 pillars of trust defined, starting off with clarity. What do we mean by that? Well, clarity is that people trust the clear and mistrust or distrust the ambiguous. We It's really hard for us to trust when we don't see the full picture and we're asked to to believe in something that maybe isn't really necessarily being presented is something that we should believe in. With clarity, you need to be clear about your mission, purpose, expectations, and daily activities. And also, when we are clear about our priorities on a daily basis, we become more productive and effective. Because again, we believe in what we're doing and that it matters. And so then we're far more likely to be productive and help towards that mission because we believe in it. And I really like this image that breaking the wording is habit, decluttering the message. I think sometimes when people are trying to be false, they sometimes will throw in extra language that isn't needed because they're trying to talk around a point without coming out right out and say it. Now, I have tendency to write a lot and be wordy, and I'm not saying I do that because of that. But I do think that sometimes this can be a flag when you feel like a lot's being said, but we're nowhere near the point. That's probably why. So that's the first pillar, clarity. Our second pillar is compassion. And people put faith in those who care beyond themselves. People are often skeptical about whether someone really has their best interests in mind. And lastly, we have the do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's not just an old saying. Honestly, it's a bottom line truth. And if you follow it, you'll build trust. So basically, how you treat other people is ultimately how people will treat you. But if you treat other people positively, and have a good relationship with them, they're far more likely to trust you than if you're known as like a backstabber or somebody who's always kind of lying and being just kind of shady in general. And so that part is compassion, our second pillar of trust. Our third pillar of trust is character, and it's that people notice those who do what is right ahead of what is easy. So, leaders who have built this pillar consistently do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, whether they feel like doing it or not. And it is the work of life to do what is easy rather than what is right rather than what is easy. I'm sorry, I'm getting tongue tied today. So yes, character. It's all about doing what's right over what is, the easy road. And sometimes doing what is right isn't necessarily easy, but it is the correct thing to do. And I found this fun sign on the ABCs of good character, and it takes you through every single letter in the alphabet and what is a strong, descriptive word for, character with each of them, which I thought was fun. Alrighty. So our fourth pillar of trust is contribution. And with contribution, it's few things build trust quicker than actual results. So at the end of the day, people need to see outcomes. And you can have compassion and character, but without the results you promise, people won't trust you. And to be a contributor, you want to be a contributor who delivers real results. So ultimately, if you're doling out all these promises about what something's going to do and expecting everybody to trust you, you got to be able to kind of deliver on those promises. So what can you do to help ensure that you can follow through on what you said you would do? And so that's basically contribution. All right, our fifth pillar of trust, or yeah, pillar of trust is competency. And with competency, it's people who have confidence in those who stay fresh, relevant, and capable. The humble and teachable person keeps learning new ways of doing things and stays current on ideas and trends. And you make a habit of reading, learning, and listening to fresh information. So, everything changes and sometimes it changes very quickly and it can be hard to stay on top of things. But if you make the effort to stay on top of what's new and improved out there rather than sticking to the belief system that we've always done this way and it works just fine, you're going to people are going to trust you more because you're making the effort to stay on top of things and to stay in the know, rather than just trying to be complacent or just assume that nothing will change and I don't have to change either. So that one's competency. All right, so connection is I believe we're on our sixth pillar right now. Connection. So people want to follow, buy from, and be around friends, and having friends is all about building connections. And trust is about relationships, and relationships are best built by establishing a genuine connection. And you develop the trait of gratitude, and you'll be a magnet. So basically, what all boils down to is you want to have a strong support system or a network of individuals who you can turn to when you have a question, who can help pitch in on maybe a project here or there. It's really great because you never know who when a relationship might help you in the long run, basically. And I really like this image because it shows you all the different social networks out there, and a lot of companies anymore do rely on social networks to kind of help build their image, to sometimes identify potential employees, etc. And so like the N is for LinkedIn. It's a basically a workplace social network, and I'm sure you all recognize Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook's logos as well. But yeah, it's all about those relationships and having a good, strong relationship because you just never know when you're going to cross paths with somebody again or where how that relationship might benefit what you're doing right now. All right, so our sixth pillar of trust is commitment. And people believe in those who stand through adversity. So people so those who stand for adversity. So people have trusted like General Patton, Martin Luther King Jr., Mohandas Gandhi. I'm sure I'm not saying that for his first name correctly. Jesus and George Washington because they saw commitment and sacrifice for the greater good, and from with all that commitment builds trust because you're far more likely to trust somebody who you can tell believes in what they're saying. And you can tell they believe in what they're saying when they'll fight for it. And so that's where I'm not saying like you have to fight necessarily at your job, but definitely show that you're dedicated to being a good employee, to doing better, to helping the company improve, etc. That's all forms of commitment. And like the sign says, let people know they can count on you. That's the biggest thing with commitment is knowing that you can be counted on. And our last pillar of trust is consistency. And so it's the little things done consistently that make the biggest difference. So if I'm overweight, it's because I've eaten too many calories over time, not because I ate too much yesterday. It is that buildup. And it's also the same in business. The little things done consistently make for a higher level of trust and better results. So you may have had one really great idea, but if overall you're always late, you don't turn in, work on time, etc. All of that kind of stuff is that one good thing is not going to negate all those little bad things. So it's like you just kind of always need to be keeping that in mind. And what can you do constantly, on a regular basis to show that you're a good employee and to be a good employee? And so I like the sign of the what you do every day matters more than what you do once in a while. And it's so true because people do remember that repetitive that of something that's happened multiple times over and over again. So those are the 8 pillars of trust. And so the importance of trust at work. And so this graph was a little kind of tricky to put together because I think it's a combination of a couple of surveys. And I didn't see all of the survey responses, so I just kind of made it all work for us. But so 22% of people, when they have trust to work and they trust their employers, they're far more willing to offer ideas and solutions. 20% were willing to work longer hours when they had trust with their employers. 32% were willing to like stay with that specific employer longer, not necessarily job search. And 26% stated that they would extend their tenure what they had with their company when they had trust at work. I kind of feel like the stay employed longer and extend your tenure are kind of along the same lines, but the article I found listed them as two separate activities. So that's how we presented them for us all. But basically, it boils down to when you have trust at work, or when you trust everyone at work and your employer, everybody, you're far more willing to be creative and to share your ideas. You don't mind putting in the work, and also it's a place you want to be. So you're not necessarily trying to find the next best thing or another workplace because you're unhappy with where you're at. So that's the importance of trust at work. All right, so today we talked about what is trust, why is trust important. We looked at what the 8 pillars of trust are, and went into each of them individually. And I really wish I could rattle all 8 C's off to you right now, but I can't. So we're just going to jump over that for a second. And we also talked about the importance of trust at work. And ultimately, by the end of all of this, I hope you've learned what traits combined together really make up trust, especially for you as an employee. Like, what are the things that you can do to inspire trust from your employers? All right, so ordinarily I would ask if there are any questions at this point, but since it's still just me, we'll move on. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to answer them. And yes, you guessed it, your assignment for today are the 8 pillars of trust assignment. So we have a video that'll go over the 8 pillars of trust and explain them a little bit more. And then there's, of course, a follow-up question. And I really liked this image, so I just kind of threw it in for some fun for us. And that's like a big so when you're in like larger companies, a lot of times they try to do like team building exercises and stuff like that to see like how cohesive of a group you are, like how much you all get along. And so, one of the big ones is like a trust fall, which is where you basically you fall backwards with the hopes that your coworkers will catch you. And so, with this image, we have one employee saying, there are easier ways to institutionalize trust than trust falls. And we got the two employees who are listening, and they go, like what? But in the process, one of their coworkers is in the midst of a trust fall, and his coworkers aren't paying attention. So the odds are really high he's going to fall now. And so I just kind of thought that was a funny little spin off on trust. But again, today's assignment's not too I don't think it's too bad. Also, make sure once you're finished with watching this, live, lesson recording that you fill out the follow-up question. And again, if you have any questions or if you have any other comments, please feel free to send those my way. I'm more than happy to help, and I hope to see you at today's, office hours at 2. Alright, well, good luck. Bye, y'all.